question for all of you. How many of you have had a high school experience, middle school, high school, in a different school district? Besides Valley City High School, you're 7, 12. So about 10 to 15 of you. Of those, how many were in a school that was overall, conditions were better, the educational environments, the learning environments were better than what your experiences were here? From it, most all of you? Anyone been in a school that the conditions like the roof, the security, the ADA was worse than the school? What school?
Back in Massachusetts.
Really?
Yeah.
Old school or what?
Old, yeah.
It was old school. Anyone else? Just curiosity. All right. So, aging systems and infrastructure. The reality of our current state in our schools, because of the ages of our schools, we hired somebody, a construction person, to come in a couple of years ago. We updated some costs with that, and we said, give us a quote on what this would be. It's no different when you have an issue with your car, you have an issue with your house. You bring your car to a mechanic and they tell you that it'll cost $2,000 to make this repair. You need new tires, you need a new engine, you got to fix your AC unit, you got to fix your windshield, whatever else it may be, same thing. So we brought somebody in, and so through that process, we came back, and the number that was estimated was $37 million. Now, that includes Jefferson, Washington, that includes the high school, that includes all the facilities across our district. Now, when you look at that comparable to our proposed new school, $46 million, and we'll get into talking about what's included with the $46 million, what's not. But the cost, if you take out Jefferson, because the plan is to keep Jefferson where it's at and then connect a new 312 school to that, the cost percentage-wise is 65%. So the question we're asking our taxpayers, the voters, some of you, would you rather spend $37 million to repair our current systems, our current schools, or would you spend $46 million to build new? And so that's kind of just in your minds as we go forward, and we talk about what's included in the $46 million with the new school, renovations to the hack. That's a question I just want you guys to think about, and we're asking our public to think about as well. So what are some of those systems and infrastructures that are part of the issue? There's things that are, and there's definitely things that aren't included in this $37 million. So building repairs are things like roofs. The reality, guys, is we have 18 different roof lines. Because we've had all these additions over the years in this building, we have roof lines. And every time that you add an addition onto that, you have a new match. And so then what happens is it creates issues like Monday, when rain falls, water sits on the roof, and then it finds an area to be able to leak through, and then all of a sudden, like in the back, right up there, you have a bucket, Mr. Nielsen, thank you, the spots, and you have water dripping. So Mr. Murray, you were in Mr. Murray's classroom, I understand, on Monday morning, water was coming in through the windows. And so it's not to say, again, that those things can't be fixed or can't be repaired. They definitely can, but they cost money. And so the question in the first group was, well, how can we have them fix that? Because it costed a lot of darn, money, what am I trying to say? So it costs a lot of money. So, so $37 million is something that we can just go into our savings and say we're going to fix this. We're going to put AC in. It costs a lot of money to be able to do so. And so, in addition to that, you guys know, and we met with some of you guys yesterday and talked about like what would be the information that would be relevant. And I was really surprised actually. One student, not to call him out, said a new school would be really nice to have air conditioning. When you go to buy a car these days, Mr. Nielsen or Mrs. Potts, do you say, like, can you make sure that you include air conditioning? Because I really want to make sure that air conditioning. Isn't that just something that's assumed? Like, isn't today's day and age, like, are we going to have screens in the back? Is there going to be a sunroof? What kind of tires am I going to have? You don't ask whether or not we're going to have AC, but that's a very legitimate question because we don't have AC. The reality of it is our systems, including heating and air conditioning, we don't have ventilation in portions of our building. And so you guys go into classrooms, whether it's the art classroom, where the temperatures could be 90 degrees, or you go into classrooms where the temperatures could be 60 degrees. And so that's an issue that we have. To specifically fix that portion of the building would be about $15 million. And so if we repair that of the $37 million, it would be nothing that you would see. Obviously, you would feel that. You'd feel a lot more comfortable in here, but it'd be nothing that you would actually see. Other issues, plumbing, and we kind of made light or joked about this. 2018, we had a flood. We've had multiple floods. The library, there was across from Mrs. Keene's, down by Mrs. Sather's room, that bathroom. There was actually a leak behind the wall. The water shot across. When Jordan showed up here, true story, Jordan, at 6 in the morning, the water had been going for probably 3 or 5 hours, and the water was going out. It was the end of January. The water was draining out onto Central Avenue. The water was also draining down towards the hack, but went into the boiler room. Fortunately, didn't go into the hack and didn't ruin the floor. Had that gone into the hack, that floor would have been shot, it would have been ruined, and basketball wouldn't have been able to play games, wrestling wouldn't have been able to be there. And so we were fortunate in that situation. I told the kids earlier, we're fortunate also for you boys that none of you were going to the bathroom at the time, because you would have been shot across the room against the other wall. So it's kind of cartoonish if you think about that. But true story is that literally that water was like a stream hitting the opposite side of that wall. Jordan? I didn't see it, Jordan shut it off. But those are the kind of issues that are behind the walls. Those are the things that we don't see. When you have buildings with the ages that we have, those are things that if we repair, again, we're not talking about updating, we're not talking about modernizing, we're talking about just repairing our infrastructure and our systems. So electrical, there's other things as well. So this is Valley City High School, 1919. The cost to build 1919 high school was $200,000. You can't build a house in 2025 for $200,000. So we are actually in the 1948. We'll show that and highlight it as well. So 1919 is you go about 10 feet over. That's the oldest part of our school building. So 1919, 1948, 1958, 1971, 1991, 2003. Mr. Starr's not here. Mr. Van Bergen's not here. What happened between 1919 and 1948? Why wasn't there any construction? What else has happened in the world during those times? Just kind of a history question. World War I, World War II, the Great Depression. And so just kind of from a historical standpoint, why did we all of a sudden have a bunch of additions in these years? What happened in World War II, after World War II, when all the veterans came back?
Baby boom.
The baby boom, Scott. So in 1972, our population, school enrollment, Valley City senior class in 1972 was 180 students in a senior class. How many seniors in your class? 84, so double. So if you think about 7th grade through 12th grade, all in this building, not including the hack, not including the cafeteria, we had a lot of students in this building. Keep that in mind. We'll talk a little bit about why that's important kind of down the road when we start talking about the size of the new school. So a lot more students then than what we have right now. So some of the challenges that you guys know: windows, roofs, doors, heating, cooling, ventilation, piping. We talked about bathroom issues. So sprinklers is a code thing. When you make renovations and changes, you got to have fire requirements, and so you have to have sprinklers. And so we're grandfathered in, meaning that if we keep the buildings the way they are, we don't have to have sprinklers. So the cost all in to make those repairs would be $25 million of the $37 million that is estimated across the district. Safety and security. So every time that we've met with high school students, safety and security is a priority for all of you. You've said and told us that you want to know who's in the building. It's an expectation in education today's day and age. There's a lot of craziness that goes on out in the world, and it's not always the mass shootings. The reality is there's custody issues, there's bad people that try to get into buildings, and so we need to be more secure than where we're at right now. We've made some changes. Having one entrance from 8:30 to 3:30 is better than what it used to be, but it's still not as good as what it needs to be. Washington Elementary office is located in the central part of the school, like the junior high or the south office is right now. And so that's an issue. How's our ADA accessibility in this building? No, seriously, legitimacy. So if you've been on crutches, you've been in a roller, scooter, whatever you want to call that. Bailey, is this no joke?
Yeah,
I know, sorry to embarrass you.
it's okay.
So, but this is just reality. This is the truth. You guys know this. We are one lawsuit away from having to make these changes in our building. So we've worked with architects, we've worked with construction people, and the reality is what they tell us is we'd be better off building a breezeway. A breezeway is like a covered ramp on the outside of a building. We'd be better off covering the sidewalk on the junior high side of things, or the cafeteria door, because the reality is there's no way that we could ever ramp inside the school to have enough space to be able to do that. So for you guys to get down, it's easier to have Sydney carry Bailey's cart and carry from the counseling door all the way down the resource center. It's just the truth of it. This is not new either, to tell you that we've had students from graduating 1990, early 2000s, that said that their friends had major significant disabilities. They were wheelchair bound. It was easier for them to pick them up than it was to wait for a lift or wait for the elevators. And so why not fix the elevator? So the elevator fix would be about $500,000. So the elevator right up here, to change that out and to replace that and to make it kind of functioning where it should be. The other elevators, again, just simply need to be replaced, and they wouldn't cost $500,000, but they would cost significant dollars to replace. I don't think that's crap. I don't think that's from toilets, but nonetheless, it gives you an indication, an idea of the challenges and the issues that we have. That's right, Trey. You wear that shirt again, you're going to get kicked out of here again next time. So, you understand that? So, just don't do it. I know you're going to NDSU, so make better decisions next time, Trey. Yeah. You didn't have a serious crisis or something. So, did I say something to offend you? Okay, so this is our piping. Jordan, how are our pipes? Plumbing. So we've had a couple of issues. We talked a little bit before. We talked about the issue of the bathroom down by the library. Mr. Quist, Mr. Backlar came back from state track a few years ago. We had some leaks that were happening up in the 1919 portion. We were fortunate there. The reality of it is up in Mr. Nielsen's third floor. This is Leader, you're here. You can talk from your experience. How many floods have you had?
4.
4 floods down in the library area. And then remember again, that's in 1971. That's not 1919 or 48 or 58. And so the reality of though, could you imagine if, let's say a Friday night, so we hit the weekend, nobody's here Saturday or Sunday, and we had a leak up in the third floor in the science rooms, and all that water rains down. So it'd be catastrophic. It'd be something that would shut down, literally shut down our school. Don't get any ideas. There's only 16 days left of school, Tegan. No ideas. So, although you see heroic status, here's the school, here's the reason for that. Don't get any ideas. So, the reality is, it's a very real issue for us that it's very difficult to replace. So that's part of the $37 million as well. We talked about the roofing issues earlier. Here's Mrs. Leerood's pictures. This is the flood from 2018, Miss Leerood, I believe, or 19? 18, I think. These are the boiler systems that take a lot of work, maintenance, kind of routine, like daily, yearly maintenance to fire up and to work. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. This is Mrs. Larson's air conditioning, $120 fan. These are the windows that need to be replaced. So just to give you guys an idea, this is the 18 different roof lines. When we talk about all the additions, we'll show a picture, a graphic of all the different additions, but you can see all the different roof lines. This is the junior high locker area. We have a lot of issues in that area because water sits and pools and then finds leaks. All right, so 1919, we're in the 1948. Mrs. Corner, Mr. Shenanko's area is 1958. Where Mrs. Kalorn, Mrs. Clavo, where the library's at, the south office is 1971. 1991 is the cafeteria. Anyone know why the cafeteria was built? 1991. Where was the cafeteria before 1991? Elijah?
District office.
District office, admin office across the street. And then student across the street, because you guys, even back in 1991, don't use crosswalks. And so somebody across the street got hit by a car. And so they decided to build a cafeteria. True story. Ms. Leroy?
Yes.
You can confirm?
True story.
True story. So, so that led to the cafeteria, and then the HAP was built on. Before the 2003 HAP was built, there was a nice parking lot for students to be able to park to get into the building. Mr. Peterson, you can attest to that.
My senior year, that's when it was, the HAP was built.
And so the HAP was built and added on to that. So, real quick, Washington Elementary School, 1956. Addition in 1984. Cost of repair, Washington Elementary is $6.5 million. You gotta love the asbestos floor tiles that are on the walls. Any designers in here, modernized, right? They're really classy. But not to worry, asbestos is not necessarily as bad as what they say. Lung cancer and other things, I mean, just aside from that. But don't worry, we take care of that. We have our custodians come along and put tape, and they tape them back up on the wall. So rest assured, if you have siblings, anyone you know down in Washington, we're all good. We have a little issue in a 6th grade classroom. Fortunately, we didn't lose any of you guys when you were down there, but this is actually the floor and the corrosion that occurs. And so this is below Mrs. Bushman's room, towards the back of her classroom, an actual part of the floor giving way. Mr. Lee said this the other day, windows, the roof, leaking. So that's some of the age and infrastructure challenges that we're dealing with. We'll talk a little bit about why we haven't addressed it or haven't been able to address that over the years. Second thing, why, is modern educational spaces. If you've been in another school, whether you've actually attended school in another school or you've been to competitions, you've been to wrestling, you've been to speech, whatever else it's been, the reality is some of the conveniences that are in those schools, whether it's learning spaces, study areas, whatever else that may be. This looks a little bit different. School safety, security included, ADA accessibility, we talked about that, and just the modern classroom. So, have any of you been to Mandan High School? Mandan High School is about 2 years old. It's really nice. Nice school. Speech. Was it speech? Yeah. Dance competition was there. So, the same architects, designers that built Mandan High School are working with us. And so we gave some examples of what that's looked like. Here is Killdeer High School, a new high school that they built. Just some examples of what a science classroom looks like. This is an elementary school in Bismarck. This is another elementary school in Bismarck. And so the reason we're showing you this is there's definitely different costs and styles that go into building schools. And a few examples of that is Mandan High School, as nice as it looks, wasn't nearly cost expensive given the same year, the building materials, as Legacy High School. Legacy High School was definitely built at a different scale and level than what Mandan High School. And so just for some comparisons, you get in Minnesota, like Alexandria, Minnesota, or Sartell, Minnesota, again, those schools are designed built with a lot more money. And so the reason we say that is we're trying to be as cost efficient and keep the dollar as a low amount as we absolutely can, with building a really nice school that's sustainable for many, many years going forward. All right, cost savings. So there's significant cost savings. You asked earlier, again, just about why reduce square feet when our enrollment has changed. So when our enrollment increased, we added space. We added space in 48 and 58 and 78 when our enrollment was increasing in the baby boom era. Well, now that our enrollment is not increasing and is going the other way, we are looking at right-sizing our school. And so there's a lot of efficiencies and cost savings for us as a school district if we connect and go to one school. So the intent of the plan, which we'll talk about here in a second, is to have everything connected all under one roof. Washington Elementary is 35,000 square feet. And so essentially we would be taking square feet off, equivalent of 2 Washington Elementary schools. And so there'd be a lot of cost savings from maintenance, utilities, just costs that go into those facilities. Other things are staffing, educational programs. So in the new school, we're looking at one cafeteria. So as an example, some cost savings is we're looking at one cafeteria, one kitchen, So going from 3 kitchens, 3 cafeterias to 1, there's significant cost savings within that. So here's the new school as proposed. I'm going to go back real quick. So we're proposing in this $46 million plan to build a new 312 school, be connected to Jefferson Elementary School. So up in the 2nd grade pod, so Mrs. Becker, I think Mrs. Reckheimer is up in this area. So we would take out 1 classroom. That would be the breezeway or the hallway through from Jefferson into a new school. The blue area on the 1st floor and the 2nd floor, we're not proposing building over Charlie Brown, just FYI. But this is the 2nd story here. So there'd be classroom spaces. This would be for special education, ILC, alternative learning spaces. This light tan area would be a cafeteria area, school store. And so within that, we have 1 kitchen, much bigger than what it is right now, but serving K-12 students. Jefferson students would eat about 9 o'clock in the morning, eat their lunch about 9 o'clock, and you guys would eat about 2:30. So it's all good, right? So we would stagger lunches, not at 9 o'clock in the morning, but obviously you guys wouldn't be eating with kindergartners. We would stagger that out and space that, but trying to be as efficient as absolutely possible. The green space would be your principals. So Mr. Peterson, Mr. Hunt, Mr. Lee would be in that area. The counselors would be in that area. The SRO would be in that area. The nursing would be in that area. The little bit darker side area would be like your music classrooms, would be CT classrooms, or your tech ed, your FACS classrooms would be in that area. And then the purple. So one thing that we want to really talk about is what's included in terms of gymnasium spacing here. That wouldn't be in the new school, kind of differences between the two. And so there'd be 2 gymnasiums, full-size courts in this area, but they wouldn't be intended for varsity competition. So volleyball, wrestling, basketball, the intent of that would not to be to replace the Highland Activity Center. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But this could be used for, obviously, PE classes or sub-varsity competition. So, all right. Now, the location of where this is built is currently over top of the Thunder area, as well as like the discus and the throwing areas. And so we know that and recognize that we have to do something to replace those areas. And so we're looking at putting turf, which is not included in the $46 million. Turf would have to go onto Hannah Field. That would provide practice space for the varsity, for Thunder, for other things as well. But in addition to that, over by the it's called the wine pit, by the new pickleball courts between there and the big pond south of there. It's an area we can't build anything on, but it'd be a practice space, it'd be a green area for junior high football or for other green spaces, maybe track and field could go in that area as well. So we'll come back to that in a second. So what else is included in the $46 million plan? We would demolish the 1919. So we would demolish this oldest portion. We demolished 1948, we demolished 1958, we demolished portions of 1971, and the intent of demolishing those, you guys, is to be able to put a parking lot. And so we know that parking is a significant issue in and around the hack, and so the reality is we have to be able to have better parking, and so the intent would be to get rid of those oldest portions. By doing so, you eliminate the deferred maintenance, the $25+ billion that currently would need to go into this space. And so that'd be replaced by a parking lot. The intent is to turn this into kind of an event or an activity center. So the gymnasium would still be there as it is today. The lobby would be there. The cafeteria would be there. The south end would be there. The resting room would be there. And so we don't know which portions of this kind of brown-orange area we would keep. All that's kind of dependent upon would there be city uses or community uses for those areas if you're holding conferences and conventions and things like that. And so that's a question that we're still trying to figure out. Now, a couple things that were asked when we met with the small group of students. A couple things. And so we already talked about track and field. We talked about football and replacement and finding those spaces. It was asked about where would speech go. If speech has a designated classroom space right now, we would have to have a equivalent type of space for speech students to be able to practice in the high school. Theater is another thing. So the theater, this would be proposed to be demolished. It's a 1948 theater. And so there's leaks and there's issues that we talked about. And so we're going to need a theater of some sort. Is that going to go into this event center? Is that going to go into the high school? That's something we have to figure out. We have not proposed that a theater, and the reason being is it would be $5 million. We cannot propose a $51 million school. There's a cap for us in terms of what we can propose, and so we could not include the district office in here. We could not include a theater in there. Again, just simply based on cost, that would increase the cost of this project by more than $10 million.
Where would where would the high school, like throwers, where would they have like discus rings and jazz on that?
Down the line, or on Highland Park. There's definitely some sacrifices, Scotty, that you know, from a new school standpoint that you need to look at. All right. So we talked a little bit about that space. Now, how is a new school funded? So $46 million is what the cost estimate. $46 million is what the cost estimate is. So that's all based on comparable projects right now out there. And so in order to be able to fund that, it comes down to the voters. So there's been recent projects, and I think it's important for you guys to recognize and note this as well, is that there's been recent projects in Valley City that have occurred that have not included a vote. There's a current public works building for $15 million shop that's being proposed for $15 million. That, again, is not coming to a vote. You may not win, been on social media, talk to your parents about that. That is not a vote. When Marks County North School was built, that was not a vote. When Maple Valley renovated and added on, that was not a vote. When the jail was built in Valley City, that was not a vote. Where we're at as a school district right now, we know that this project is a significant dollar ask of our community and our citizens. And so what it comes down to is, it's their opinion, it's their voice, it's their vote. So if you are 18 years or older and you reside, you can prove through ID, through a bill, a utility bill, a cell phone bill, that you live and reside in Valley City. You have a voice in this matter, including at least 60 of you. So we say that to emphasize that all the work that we put into this, the reality of this is that it comes down to our community, what they want for the future of our school district and the future of our community. And so in order to be able to fund that, pay that, it is the taxpayers that put the money into that, and it's over a 20-year period. So if you own a house, that is $100,000. So the average house in Valley City is about $200,000. Your taxes will go up $672 a year over 20 years to pay for the school. It is most definitely an investment. So the average house in Valley City would go up, again, $700. I'll come back and talk a little bit about something that's relevant, relative to the cost for our taxpayers that may get approved through the legislature here in the next day. So property tax relief. So through the state legislature right now, it was actually voted on last November. So there's a property tax relief measure coming that would actually take, so let's just use $200,000 as an example. A house that's $200,000, you pay taxes of $2,500 a year. $2,500 if your house is valued at $200,000 in Valley City. A new school would add $672 to that. So let's just call it for round numbers, $3,200 that you would be paying if this school is approved on June 10th. $3,200 would be the new tax. If, through the state legislature, they bring about property tax relief, it could be up to $1,650, somewhere between $1,200 and $1,600 a year if that is your primary house. Your tax will decrease. It will go from paying $2,500 a year to $1,500 a year if $1,600 tax relief comes in and you'd have a new school. So we're going to share that information. Again, all this is coming at the end of the legislative session to make sure people understand that yes, it is a big ask, but that along with property tax relief is something that our taxpayers need to understand, they need to know as well. Now, one thing it doesn't do, through property tax relief, that's been a big hot topic of conversation, and this proposal also impacts, and I know some of you also are in agriculture or agricultural kind of related positions, is that a project such as this has a big impact on taxpayers, farmers. And so an acre of land would be $3.60. Now, property tax relief by the legislature, the intent of, I'll just talk about it. The intent would be future legislative sessions to have property tax relief for ag land, commercial land, and non-primary properties as well. All right, so what happens if on June 10th this does not pass? These are real considerations that the school board will need to make, because again, remember we talked about change in enrollment, financially where we've been hit. As you guys know, some of you have been impacted directly, whether it's art programs or whether it's dance programs or whether it's specific staffing decisions that have had to be made, because the reality is we can't spend more than what we bring in. And so we would look at closing and selling Washington Elementary. We'd move 4th grade students to Jefferson. We'd move 5th and 6th grade students up here. This would turn into a 5-12 building. We would look at closing and selling the district office. Where the district office would go, we don't know. That would be a conversation. We're currently looking at adding pre-K programs to Jefferson Elementary. That would no longer be a consideration because we'd have to make space for 4th graders up at Jefferson. We would seriously have to consider looking at cutting additional programs. And again, that's not intended to be an idle threat to you guys, to our staff, or to our community, but it's just simple the reality of our position where we're at. We're going to continue to have maintenance costs and needs that likely would not be able to be addressed unless we would go back and ask our community to pay for a remodel or a repair of our building, again, up to $37 million. So, part of the considerations looking ahead, and maybe it's difficult if you're 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, but some of the things that I think we're trying to educate our community about is what does the future hold for our community? We know that our population is declining, so since 1970, every decade the census has been done, the population of Valley City has been on the decline. Actually, the county has been declining since 1920. So how do you reverse that? How do you change that? How do you attract new families? What I can tell you, and we told the last group this as well, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and you expect something different to happen, it's the definition of what? So, does a new school enhance the appeal of the community? I'd ask you is that, as new families look at our community and relocating and choosing where they want to live, where they want to send their kids, I do think that things like the Wellness Center, the Fine Arts Building, those types of things, the Highlander Activity Center, do have impacts. And so the question for our community before they vote on June 10th is an investment into a new school something that would ultimately lead to growth in our community, which would lead to growth in our school? Does a new school increase school and community population? We talked about what do we want our community to look like in 10, 20, or 50 years? I think the bigger question is what happens if? What happens if we don't build a new school? What happens if we make repairs on our current infrastructure? Does our population, does our enrollment continue to decline? And so I think that's the big question that we're trying to right now ask. Just FYI as well, we're recording this, and so that's why I have this up. Not that I can't yell, but we're also just recording this just in case somebody says, hey, can you share that presentation? Because you guys go home and you talk to your parents and they want that information as well. And so just FYI. And so the best way to be able to have sound on that is to be able to have a microphone. So what do we want our school community to look like in 10, 20, 50 years? The question to leave you guys with is, if not now, when, if not here, where, if not us, who? We know right now, and you guys know this better than 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, is that when you go out and go to competition, you go to other schools, the reality is other schools, it is a competitive world in education that we live in. And so whether you talk about Barnes County North, you talk about Maple Valley, you talk about Kindred or Castleton or West Fargo, whatever else it may be, the reality of schools are modernizing and they're improving, and we're in a situation right now where we have to do something. What I'm most afraid of is if not a new school and we choose to repair a school, remember, we are not modernizing. We will address the maintenance and the system issues. We'll replace roofs, we'll replace doors, we'll replace windows, we'll replace the heating and cooling system. We'll make sure you guys have air conditioning, but the reality of it is a lot of the modern educational spaces won't change. So, the reality is 60 of you have the opportunity to be able to vote. Many of you choose based on historical data and statistics. Many of you will choose not to. same with our staff, and I'll say the same thing to them as well, is that life kind of happens. People get busy and June 10th comes, and rather than prioritizing showing up to vote on that day or submitting an absentee ballot ahead of time, people forget and they lose track of dates, and June 10th comes and they go to the lake and they forget. And so if, again, this is something that's important for you, for your siblings, for the future of Dodge City, all we ask is not tell you how to vote, it is just simply to vote. And so if you're 18, you're eligible to vote. You can vote absentee, you can show up on June 10th and vote. The other reality of this, like we said from the get-go of this, is that you are influential. You guys as students, your experiences in the school, whatever that may be, your voices do matter, and we want to be able to make sure that people hear that. You know what's happening, the information from you guys as well. So, that is it. Mr. Peterson, where are we at on time?
We got about 10 minutes.
Okay, so questions, again, as we presented across the community, we have a web page out there with information. You can ask any question that you want. We will provide information about what we're proposing and what is what. So, all right, so as we have questions, as we address those questions, please, again, you guys have been super attentive. Yes. Yes, yes. Okay, so the flyers have been handed out. So this is just a, again, informational flyer. Everything that we just got done talking about is on this flyer. It gives some resources about where to find that information. So if you go take this information, go home, have a conversation with the parents, have a conversation with a guardian, talk to your grandparents, talk to a neighbor. If you get somebody, an adult, parent, to sign that, bring it back. Friday morning will be set up in the 1919 portion of school somewhere. Handing out donuts for the first 150 that come back between 8 and 8:30, and then your name will go in to a drawing for some Healthier You and Dairy Queen gift cards on Friday morning. So take it for what it's worth. The intent of doing that, you guys, is to make sure that you go home and have a conversation with your family. So, okay, hold on, sit tight. We're almost done. Remember, if you go back right now, you're gonna have homework. Yes. Yep. 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 The question is whether or not we consider keeping this portion of the building, and we would. And that's something that isn't off the table. So this is the 1948 portion of the building, and this is a very historical and a great theater. The rest of our building looked the way that the theater looked. The reality is we probably would not be proposing a new school. And so we would consider that, but if not this, the reality is the district has to commit to something for a theater and drama department because it is a very successful program. In fact, the school district partner, we talked a little bit about that as well, but the school district actually is looking at bringing on One Act Play next year. And so One Act Play is a high school activity association sponsored activity where you can compete against other schools in drama and theater. And so we're really excited about that as well as an opportunity for you guys. So you'd be able to have competition kind of theater play and then also have your traditional theater program during the year. And so if you have more questions about that, we can talk about that too as well. Other questions? Hey, listen up please. We're almost done. You guys have been great.
You talked about where the special needs and the IS
Yep.
classrooms be. Where would the regular classrooms be, like your standard courses?
Yep. So these will be standard classrooms. So remember again, this is designed as a 312. And so we make sure that, again, equipment classes to what we have right now would fit into this space. This would also be classroom space in this area. And so primarily these two areas, and then this would be the library up on the second floor. This is a super high level concept and design. One of the things that we're not doing is we're not paying our architects and designers a cent. They haven't gotten anything from us. And so the reason why we haven't done like fancy drawings and renderings to show you what the inside will look like is because we truthfully don't want to pay them for that. And And so we want them to do any more work until we would have this project approved, and then we would get into meeting with staff and meeting with community members to figure out those specific spaces. Other questions? Other questions? Anybody else? Ryan? Right here? So, kind of like a commons, kind of like probably an area like the cafeteria being here. The way I would envision that design would be kind of a concrete patio, maybe be an area where you guys could go and hang out during the day. If it was a nice day in the fall or a nice day in the spring, maybe there's a lunch table set up there to go out and chill and eat lunch. So also the other reality of that is that down the road, there's also a future phase of this. So the question has been, so what happens if we do build and all of a sudden obviously it turns into a boom town? And so our population, drastically increases. Do we have the capacity to be able to build onto this? And the reality is we do. So in addition, we would look at down the road, replacing Jefferson Elementary. While Jefferson is our most efficient building, it has the least maintenance for us. The design and the shape of the classrooms, as you guys know, is not ideal. And so down the road, that would be a future consideration. I won't be here, our school board won't be here. You guys will be parents, maybe you only live here, maybe you won't. But that's a future conversation down the road 20 years. Other questions? Yeah? So the question was about the property tax legislation, and so the legislative session is likely to end today or tomorrow. And so we'll know today or tomorrow, and once we do know, that information will go out. That is very relevant, you guys, and for a lot of people. We know that if you own a home, a property, that the tax impact is significant on this school. And so if you get property tax relief on that, the reality is you can have a new school and pay less next year. So we want to make sure that information gets out. Other questions? Yeah?
So like on the second floor, like all the lights and all the media, you said that the library.
No. This is just like the gymnasium. So this is big open, tall rows. So none of the white is classroom space. That's just high, tall ceilings. So like the music rooms, the CT areas would just go up top. This is mechanical. The cafeteria would go up, right? And so somewhere there would be the library. Caleb, you have a column? So did I answer that? Okay. Yeah?
How long would it take for the school to build?
2 years. And so when we met with 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, we told the 9th graders that they would be seniors, 8th graders would be juniors, 7th graders would be sophomores. So the reality is sophomores, juniors, seniors, they're out of line. Sorry, you guys. You got to pay it forward somewhere else. Mr. Nielsen.
The operational cost savings per year, what's that? Do you have that number?
So we're estimating that in our budget, so we're almost done, you guys. So our operating budget, we have a $12 million budget. So that's like staffing, that's construction, curriculum, technology, paying salaries. So that's $12 million. We're estimating that we'd save $750,000 to $1 million every year. Why that's significant, why that's important, is to be able to make sure that we can fund programs, we can bring staffing positions back. But part of that is also right-sizing our school district. Mr. Nielsen?
So by my mathematics, in 14.7 years, we're actually at head of, if there was new repaired versus building new, we'd actually be money saved in these 15 years if we had to.
Okay, other questions, Mr. Peterson? All right, so reminder on your sheets. Go home, talk to somebody, have somebody sign it, bring it back on Friday morning.